You're listening to Missing Persons, brought to you by AbJack Entertainment. Be sure to check out some of the other great true crime podcasts from this network, including The Murder in My Family, DNA ID, Beyond Bizarre True Crime, Zodiac Speaking, Scene of the Crime, 3 Men and a Mystery, and All Things Crime. All of these podcasts are available for you to binge on right now, wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe where you're listening to this podcast so you don't miss an episode.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast do not necessarily represent those of the podcast, its creators, or sponsors. If you would like to discuss a missing persons case on this podcast, please be sure to visit missingpersonspodcast.net. This episode may contain unsettling or disturbing subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Missing Persons, a podcast dedicated to spreading the word about people who have vanished under mysterious or unexplained circumstances, and the family members who are looking for answers. I'm Jess Betancourt.
And I'm Mike Morford. Together we created this podcast to help give a voice to people who continue to search for their missing loved ones, in some cases even after decades have gone by. In each episode, you'll hear from Jess giving listeners the backstory and the basic facts of the disappearance.
Then Mike will speak with someone who's intimately connected to the missing person, and his guest will share their story with us.
Please stay tuned at the conclusion of this episode to hear about our Patreon program and our commitment to help find people who have gone missing. We'll also share with you where you can find more information and how you can join our team and help our efforts. You'll get recommendations for other podcasts we think you'll enjoy, and more.
So sit back and enjoy this episode, and who knows, maybe you can help us find someone who's missing.
Episode 44, Kim Avila. Kimberly Avila, whose birth name is Ramiro Avila, is a transgender woman who is missing from Brownsville, Texas. She was born on October 12, 1984, and lived in Brownsville her whole life. Her family describes her as a wonderful, family-oriented young woman who is smart and has lots of hobbies and interests. She was particularly fond of music and loved to draw and design clothing. She was also active and popular in the local LGBTQ community. On Friday, May 12, 2017, Kim and her family, including brother Noah and sister Yvonne, played cards at their mother Elida's home with relatives from out of town. Typically, at home on a regular day, Ramiro was known to his family as Junior. But when he was going out on the town, Ramiro would take on the persona of Kimberly, dress up, and frequent bars and clubs in Brownsville. On this night, Kimberly was all ready to go out, but decided to stay and play cards for a bit. After the game, around 2:30 a.m. on the 13th, Kim asked her sister Yvonne to drive her downtown. Kim often frequented the downtown bars and met up with customers as a sex worker, and dressed as she did on this particular night, a long black wig, a black blouse and skirt, fishnet stockings, and heels. Kim's family only recently had discovered that Kimberly was working as a sex worker. She occasionally came home with cuts and bruises and said that she had been roughed up because of her transgender identity. Yvonne dropped Kim off on the 1200 block of East Washington Street. This is a commercial area with restaurants, bars, and shops. Kim saw people that she knew and got out of the car to join them. Yvonne says that Kim was in a great mood that night and everything seemed normal. As she got out of the car, Kim said, "See you in the morning, love you." But when Yvonne woke the next morning, there was no sign of Kim. This was very concerning because, as was customary, Kim was scheduled to take care of Yvonne's kids on Saturday while Yvonne was out. And she was not at her mom's house either. Her family says that no matter what, Kim always came home. Yvonne immediately started calling hospitals and police departments across Cameron County, inquiring if Kimberly was there. And after work that day, the family went back downtown to where Yvonne last saw her sibling. They started going through the different alleyways and streets, asking people nearby if they had seen their family member. There was no trace of her whatsoever. Hours passed by and we couldn't find him, Yvonne said. I knew something was wrong. The Avilas filed a missing persons report with the Brownsville Police Department after they had not heard from Kimberly for 24 hours. They said it was just not like Kim to just disappear and not be in contact with her family. Kim did have a cell phone with her that night, but it's not clear whether her phone was connected to service, and she has not been in any kind of communication with her family. The Brownsville police initially said they had no indication that foul play had occurred, but they acknowledged that Kim's disappearance was out of character and unusual. They also said that, unfortunately, Kim's occupation as a sex worker had impeded the investigation because both her fellow sex workers and potential customers were hesitant to speak with police. Nevertheless, they say they have interviewed numerous people and the investigation is ongoing. The Avila family plastered missing persons flyers all over downtown Brownsville, but they were always torn down or defaced. This was only the case with posters about Kim, and the family suspects that whoever destroyed the posters may know something about her fate. The family has also questioned whether the community and police have failed to prioritize Kim's case as much as they would if she were not transgender. They have been critical of the police department's failure to communicate with the family and lack of transparency with the investigation. There was an incident at the vigil in honor of the second anniversary of Kim's disappearance in 2019, in which the Cameron County District Attorney Louis Sands announced that he had, quote, just interviewed a suspect who may have been responsible for her death. Kim's family had never been told that the police suspected that Kim was deceased, and they have not received an explanation for this statement. The Brownsville Police Department continues to categorize Kim's case as a missing persons investigation. A March 2018 anonymous tip to a tip line seemed promising, but the caller did not convey enough information for police to go on, they said. There is a $10,000 reward for information about the whereabouts of Kim Avila. When Kim went missing, she was 32 years old, 5 foot 8 inches tall, approximately 200 pounds, and of Hispanic heritage. She has brown hair and brown eyes, but she was wearing gray contact lenses. She would now be 37 years old. Mike Morford sat down to talk to Kim Avila's sister Yvonne Rodarte about Kim's case. That conversation is coming up after a word from our sponsors.
Hi, Yvonne, and thanks for coming on Missing Persons to discuss your sister Kimberly's case with us.
Hi.
I'm happy to have you here, and I hope we can help you spread the word about Kim's case. Before we get into the details surrounding her disappearance and what might have happened to her, can you tell us a little bit more about Kim herself?
Kim was a very happy person, always smiling, always laughing. She loved music and dancing, so she was that way all the time. Very nice, very noble. She used to help my niece and my youngest son after school with their homework. She would be like right there making sure that they did the homework as soon as they got home, and she would help them with their activities. She was just that type of person. Like, she was very, very alive, very happy, very cheery, always smiling, always laughing.
Very friendly and family oriented, sounds like.
Yes.
And your sister vanished from Brownsville, Texas. Is that where Kim actually lived? Did she live in that town? And if so, how long was she living there?
And she's been living here all her life. She was born and raised here. And it is Brownsville, Texas. We're right by the border. She always lived here. She never moved. She was always here. This is where our family lives, and, we're all here.
So that was an area she was very familiar with and knew, the different groups of people there, knew her way around town, basically.
Yes.
Your sister Kim was transgender. Had she ever experienced any kind of violence or threats or any kind of hate because she was transgender? Was that an issue she faced at all?
She did. The only thing with Kimberly is that she would not tell us, so we would not worry. So, sometimes when she would go out, when she would come home the next morning, like sometimes I would notice that, she had scratches, or she had, her, like her purse torn, things like that. And I would ask, hey, what happened? And she would be like, oh, it's because I fell, or, things like that we knew something had happened, but she would never tell us. She would never tell us because she didn't want my mom to worry or ourselves. Like she wouldn't. She would just keep it to herself. But we do know that they went through a lot. When she would go out, sometimes not all the time, but sometimes she would get attacked because of her gender.
So it sounds like that was something she tried to handle on her own without worrying the rest of the family, so they wouldn't constantly be, wondering if something was going to happen to her.
She was not a fighter. So, I mean, she would stand up for herself, but she wasn't a fighter. So I know that if they would come up to her and, like try to steal from her or push her around, like she would just like didn't say anything, like, okay, I'll take it or whatever. But she would not let us know. Later, after she went disappearing, there were some people that were, that was out there that work out the streets and that work on the streets and things like that, that would mention, that sometimes, they would get robbed. They would get, their belongings taken away. And Kimberly was one of the persons that was a victim of that because of their gender.
So she's targeted because of her gender. It's publicly reported that Kim was a sex worker, and I think we all know that kind of work can be dangerous. There's bad people that can try and take advantage of people that are in that profession. Had Kim ever expressed fear or concern that any of the people she met through that work might be dangerous? And did your family know about her, what she was doing, and were you concerned at all for her safety in that line of work?
We had recently found out what she was doing because, like I said, Kim was very private with her private life. Here at the house, she was Junior because his birth name is Ramiro Avila Jr. So at the house, he was Junior. And then on the weekends when he would go out, it would become Kimberly, but she kept everything to herself. Like she would not disclose anything that happened when she left the house. We didn't know until recently. We just found out not too long before she disappeared what she was doing out on the streets. And when we found out, like when she told us about it, she had that plan. She had that plan that she was going to leave that. She was going to get a job. She had a lot of plans that she wanted to do because she said that it was time for her, to stop doing what she was doing, and she was going to focus on getting a job. And, my son was going to graduate. So, she had plans like, we have to make a graduation party. I'm going to help you. I'm going to work and help you. We're very united. We're very close, myself and her. So there was a lot of plans that she had when this happened. So at the beginning, when she went missing, a lot of people, had different, comments and assumptions that would say, no, well, maybe she ran away with someone she met, or maybe, she just left. She's not like that. Like she knew that my mom would always wait for her. And we knew the time that she would always get home. So when she didn't get home, we knew something was wrong.
So you had a sense of her family connection, that she wouldn't just take off without saying goodbye.
No.
Yeah, that you knew something was wrong. Had she ever left before for any stretch of time with or without telling the family?
Never. She would go out, right? She would go out, but she would always come back home, and we knew, like she would be home by 7:00, the latest in the morning, because she knew my mom would be up by that time, and she had to be home so she wouldn't worry. So sometimes, she didn't have a ride. She would she would manage a way to find a way to get home. She would walk home. She would get a taxi. She would ride the public bus. She would call my mom or she would call myself to go pick her up wherever she was at. But she never missed not coming home. She would always come home. So that morning when I woke up and she was supposed to go to my apartment and she wasn't there, I knew something was not right.
Did you and your family start saying right away, something's wrong, we need to go to the police? How soon did you decide that you needed to try and do something?
I woke up, I got a call from my mom. It's like we had this intuition. I stayed up, for a while till I got up at 5 and she wasn't home. Then I fell asleep because I had to go to work in the morning. My mom called me like around 7:30 and she said, hey, is she there? So I got up and I went to go check the living room, my son's bedrooms to see if she had gotten there. She wasn't there. So immediately I knew something was wrong. I hung up with my mom. I called the hospitals. I called the jails. I called hospitals in Harlingen, McAllen. I started calling everywhere because I knew that was not normal. So I left. I started getting ready for work. My mom kept on calling me. She's like, is she there? And I'm like, no, is she? And I would ask her, did she get home? And she's like, no. So we knew something was off. I left to work and I was at work and my mom called me like around noon and she's like, Yvonne, she's at home. So that was definitely like, no, this is not okay. So I ended up leaving work early and I stopped. I was on my way to my mom's and there was a patrol car parked and I was so desperate and and I knew something was wrong. I stopped where the police officer was at and I told him what was going on. He immediately made a report. I know that we usually have to wait a certain amount of hours, but I don't know if it was God's grace. He made the report right away, gave me the case number, told me I had to wait, until Monday because it was a Saturday. I had to wait till Monday to go to the detectives, but everything was done so quickly. After I got home to my mom's, time started passing by, 4 o'clock, and I called all of her friends, closest friends, and nothing. That's when we went out where I dropped her off and we started looking through the alleys, talking to people, asking, if they had seen her last night. And that's when the nightmare started.
So it sounds like you were pretty desperate. You're driving around just hoping that you find her or finding someone that saw her or anything that you could come up with.
Yes, we stayed out until past midnight that day. We went through the alley, the trash cans, the big trash bins. You're desperate and, a lot goes through your mind. I went to the specific spot where I dropped her off to check to see maybe, I could see if there was any signs of blood or she was wearing bracelets with beads. I said maybe there was a scuffle and they tore, it was, maybe I see beads on the floor. Maybe I see, some items that she had on her little purse because the zipper didn't work. But nothing. No trace, nothing at all.
So it's like trying to find a needle in the haystack. You're just looking for any little thing any little sign of her.
Mm-hmm.
And so once the couple days went by and you finally were able to talk to the detectives on Monday, what did they have to say and what did they start doing?
Well, they assigned us, the detective that got her case, her name's Melissa Gonzalez. She was the first detective that had the case. She started interviewing, I guess when I dropped her off, this is what happened. I went to drop her off myself. I was the last person that saw her. When we got there, she wanted to go to a bar, but it was already closed because it was past the hours, right? So when we got there, she said, go around the block to see who's here, meaning, other sex workers, that were out there on the street. So we drove around once, and there were plenty of people out on the street there that she knew and that I myself knew who they were. So we drove around once, and then we drove around second time. And on the third time, she said, drop me off here, which was usually where she would stand, right? And I kept telling her, why don't let's go home? I had this feeling that something was wrong or was going to happen. So I kept telling her, let's go home, come back tomorrow. And she was like, no, I'm already dressed. There's a lot of people here. You already saw who's here. It's okay. I'm just going to walk towards them. So I stood there on that corner where I dropped her off. And when I gave her a ride, she would hug me, give me a kiss, and say, I love you. I'll see you in the morning. That night, she got off the truck and she just turned around and looked at me. But it was like I knew I wasn't gonna see her.
Just a feeling that you had.
Yes. And then I told her, let's go. And then she got mad. She's like, go home because it's late and you have the boys. So my thing has always been, what if I would have gone back one more time? Maybe I would have seen something. Maybe I would have seen if someone got near her, close to her. But I didn't. I came home and then she didn't go home.
Has that been tough for you? Do you feel some kind of guilt for that?
It has. I can't let go of that.
Yeah. And it's not your fault, but I can only imagine how you feel some kind of thing like you could have done something, and I hope that's something that doesn't stay with you. But when the police went out, did they go out in the area talking to maybe other sex workers or people that Kim knew? Did they find anything out? Were there people willing to talk to the police to give them any information?
See, that's the thing. My sister's case is very, very hard in the way that I knew who was there, exactly where they were at. And when we were looking for her that first day, some of them were out there. And I personally went up to them and I asked them, hey, did you see Kimberly last night? And they were like in shock, right, that we were asking about her. And they were just like, nope, like we weren't out here last night, I didn't see her. And that's when at the beginning I knew something was definitely wrong, because I knew they were there, but they were denying it. And then when the investigators, the detectives talked to them, a lot of them denied their presence was there. But, they had to tell them that they knew they were there, because what they didn't know was who had dropped her off. They didn't know it was me that had dropped her off. So when they were confronted, by letting them know that there was a witness that actually saw them there that night, when she went missing, that's when they just said that, yeah, they had seen her from far away. But that was it.
Do you think they didn't want to help because they were afraid to get involved because they don't trust the police maybe? Or do you think they had knowledge of what might have happened to Kim and they were afraid to say something?
I believe that's the case, that they know what happened to Kimberly. They just don't want to talk about it. They don't want to get involved. For what reason? I don't know, right? But our family, we've always had that feeling that there's more to this case than what is being said and what is being said to us. But unfortunately, no one is willing to talk. I did a press conference because the year after my sister disappeared, there was a phone call that was made to the tipsters. And that phone call was very important. Detectives asked me to make a press conference begging the person that had called to call back because apparently, that phone call, we don't know what was said. We don't, they never disclosed that information to us. They said it's part of the investigation. So whoever called gave information, but they never called back again.
So I and correct me if I'm wrong, but that was like a March 2018 tip. Is that the one you're or maybe I'm off on the date?
No, it was just around that time.
Okay. And do they say what was in the tip, or they didn't reveal anything about the tip at all?
No, nothing. All they told us was, all they told me was that was some key information that they needed, but they needed to speak to the person that had made the phone call. That's why they made us do the press conference and plead, right? Whoever called to call back, but as of now, they never called back.
Has there been any kind of any sightings of Kim since she vanished? Anyone that thought they might have seen her? Any possible sightings of her?
There was at the very, the day after she disappeared, there was a whole bunch of phone calls, that she was in this certain place, she was in that certain place, and police went and did the investigation. They went through the places that said that, she might be there, but it was all false. And then throughout the time, the reward amount went up to $10,000, right? So for us, it's very weird that that anonymous caller called when the reward was very little. And for that same person that made the phone call, now that the reward is bigger, they haven't called back. So our family and I take it as, they're not interested in the money. They were just interested in saying whatever they said they had to say.
Yeah, and maybe for some reason they got cold feet or they got scared and decided not to call back.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they have the courage to reach out again and come forward. Were any of Kim's belongings, like her purse or phone, any of that stuff ever found?
Nothing. That's nothing. Nothing. No purse, no phone. She had a phone, but it wasn't connected. No purse, no phone, no belongings, no ear, nothing. It's like whoever took her, and I don't know.
Was there any sign of use in any of her accounts, like maybe a bank account, or was her Social Security number used, anything like that, since she disappeared?
Nothing. Everything since the last day that she walked out here, nothing. On her social media, she would always communicate through Messenger. She would take pictures all the time of wherever she was at. She would take pictures and post them. And that night that I went to go drop her off, that's the the weird thing about it, because she would always take selfies and post them. That was her, if you go into her Facebook account, she has pictures of herself all over because that's what she would do. And that night, there was no pictures, no, she didn't communicate through Messenger, through her social media, nothing.
So is it possible maybe that something, whatever happened to her, happened very soon after you dropped her off, so she never got a chance to post anything?
Yes, I'm thinking that's what happened. That I believe that as soon as I left, it wasn't too long before whoever, picked her up or took her would leave. But the thing about it is, she was out there, but at the same time, she was very cautious. Like, she wouldn't get in a vehicle. She would just walk, Like, she wouldn't get in a vehicle if there were multiple persons, or she wouldn't get in a vehicle if, she had that bad feeling about a certain person. She wouldn't get in a vehicle that, she was like that. So whoever took her knew her.
So you think it's someone that she trusted and she felt comfortable going with?
Yes. We believe that whoever she got in the vehicle with, or whoever took her, or, she must have known.
And I've seen some theories, some ideas that maybe she could be in Mexico. Is there any, I know you live close to Mexico. Was there any connections for her in Mexico that it might be possible that she could be there?
No. And I'll tell you the reason why. She was afraid to go to Mexico because, she would always say that in Mexico they wouldn't accept, Mexico was very dangerous because of her gender, right? She was super afraid. She would never go to Mexico, not even with us when we, would go as a family. She would not go to Mexico at all. And when she went disappearing, that's the first thing that we asked, check the cameras, because the cross bridges have cameras everywhere. Check the cameras, check to see my sister was very tall. And plus she had stilettos. There's no way that you're going to miss someone like that tall, right? So that was out of the question, like, whatever happened to my sister happened here. It did not happen to Cross.
Is there any history or any information about any other sex workers maybe in the same area that had any problems with a client, or were afraid of anyone, or maybe got attacked? Is there any of that going around that might lead to, someone to look at as a suspect maybe?
I know that night that she went missing, there was, some incident that had happened with other workers that were out there that night, but they investigated, they found the persons responsible for what had happened previous before her getting there. So they ruled that out. That was the incident that happened that night, earlier that night, but she wasn't there when those things were happening. So that was out of the question, that was out. She wasn't even there when those incidents occurred.
So it's now been, what is it, 5 years? So,
5 years.
Yeah, so quite a bit of time has gone by, and unfortunately, in missing persons cases, I think it's harder to find things the more time that goes by. What is the status now of the investigation, and what's going on with it now?
It's still an open case. It's a missing persons case. It's an open missing persons case. I know that in one of the press conference or interviews that they did to the detectives, or they had said that they were investigating it as a homicide. So when that was mentioned, the reporters, everybody, was like, okay, why are you treating it as a homicide? Where's the body? Do you have enough evidence? So I guess then the police department said they chose the wrong words. So they went back on what they had said, There was an interview, I don't know if you read about it, that that was said that they were investigating her case, and that apparently the district attorney, had spoken with someone, and the police department had gone and spoken to somebody, and then the district attorney, which is Luis Saenz, made a comment on one of her vigils that they were gonna fight to get justice for Kimberly, and that the killers, those were his words, the killers of Kimberly were gonna pay because they were gonna fight to get justice for Kimberly. He made that statement in one of her vigils, and we were shocked because we knew nothing about that. Once he made that comment, the reporters tried asking him questions. He got off the microphone and left. We talked to the chief and we asked him what's going on. My brother was looking at me like, Yvonne, what's going on? Did you know about this? All the reporters that were there were confused, and I was like, I know nothing about this. We talked to the chief. We said, what's going on? Why did he make that statement? And all they told us was that they didn't know.
Wow.
So as of right now, reporters have tried to talk to him for the past years, like 2 years, because it happened 2 years ago, I believe. And he has declined interviews. He has declined comments. He has declined talking about that. But he has never apologized. He has never come forward. He has never retracted what he said. Nothing. So that makes it even worse for us because, us hearing that in one of her vigils and not knowing anything about it. And then we ask, and, my mom is crying. My dad is crying. My brother's looking at me confused because, I've always been at the forefront of the investigation with them. And I'm looking like, what's going on? I don't know what's going on. The reporters come up to me and they've on, did you know this? And I know nothing.
Wow.
And, that was like a total shock for everybody that was there, his statement. And like I said, up until this day, he has not retracted from what he said, but he hasn't talked about it. The chief has declined knowing why he made that comment. So we don't know what's going on.
Has that statement caused you to lose hope? Were you hopeful maybe more before he said that she was out there someplace, that she might one day be found? And then hearing that, did that make you lose hope?
Well, yes, because, we've never lost hope in finding her or finding out what happened to her. But when we hear that, it's like, oh my God, they know something that they're not telling us. For him to say that, especially the district attorney, right? For him to make that statement, it's like, oh my God, he had a reason to say that statement. What's the reason? What's going on? What happened that they're not telling us? And this happened after that phone call.
So today, how hopeful are you to get any kind of news? Are you hoping that you just get some little clue, or are you hoping to find out exactly everything that can be learned? What is it that you're looking for at this point?
Right now, like at this point, we want what we've always wanted from the very beginning. We want to know what happened to her. Like, we want to know if she's alive, or if she's not alive, she's no longer here. We at least want to know what happened. And if that is the case, we want for whoever hurt her to pay for what they did. But we have nothing. We have nothing.
So after 5 years, you're just sitting here with nothing to go on, and no sign of anything changing in the near future, unfortunately.
They've changed. My sister's case has gone through 4 detectives. 2 of them retired already, trying to close the case. All the detectives that get her case, they want to close it. They want to know what happened because it's a very complicated case, like they say, but they want to get to the bottom of it. And they tell us, don't lose hope with us. We're doing everything we can, We're doing, using different techniques. We're doing different things. A lot of time passed. Yes, we're going over everything. We're trying to see if we missed maybe something. We're talking to everybody again. We're doing all that we can to see, to try to solve this case, to try to find out where she's at, to try to find out if in fact something did happen to her, what happened to her, to try to give you answers that you're asking us for answers, and we're trying to get you the answers that you need.
Well, it sounds like maybe what we need is for people to come forward if they know something or if they heard anything, maybe come forward and provide some tips or some information. Are there any social media pages or website where people can either go and learn more about Kim's case or to give a tip or any information they have?
The tip, it's Bronxville Police Department. They can call the Bronxville Police Department, which is 956-548-7000. That's the direct line. Or the tips line is 956-546-TIPS. And that's where they can call anonymously, or they can call directly to the police department. That's Crime Stoppers. The second, the 546-TIPS, that's the Crime Stoppers line. They can ask in reference to Kimberly's. Everybody knows here in Bronxville about Kimberly's case because we haven't stopped. We've gone and we would put flyers every day. That's another thing that I'm telling you, that we know something's not right because we'd put up flyers, missing flyers every single day. And by the next day, all of the flyers, I'm telling you, all of the flyers were torn down, burned, slashed, vandalized every single day.
So maybe somebody doesn't want you digging too much or finding out any more information.
And they was only her flyers. Or if they could, we even went as far as laminating the flyers. And, so it would be harder for them to tear them down. We laminated the flyers, put them up on the businesses, put them up on the corners, and I guess it was harder for them to take down. So what they would do is they would burn or they would cut off the information for the police department, like phone numbers. They would tear them off. They would burn them off. They would cut them off if they couldn't get to the whole flyer itself. So the majority of the times that we had to replace flyers that were halfway, because the information, the other half was missing.
It seems like someone's desperate not to have people call in with tips or information, and hopefully that doesn't scare people off from doing that. Is there still a reward in the case?
Yes, the reward's still there. It's a $10,000 reward. It's still there. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we would make fundraisers. The LGBTQ community helped us a lot. We would do events and they would raise money. We would raise money, and the money was going to the rewards. They had the Gay Pride in June, and all of the dancers, donated their tips to Kimberly. The transgender community as well, the vigils, anything that we could do, we would do. Because unfortunately down here, it's very hard to get donations from, let's say, businesses. important people in the community for the simple fact of her gender and what she was doing out there. We feel that in a way, she has been discriminated against because since the very beginning, we didn't get the exposure of her case. The community knew at the beginning, but that's because ourselves and the Valley AIDS Council Association from Brownsville made a press conferences. Us ourselves have to call the reporters because, when somebody goes missing, the police department make a press conference.
Mm-hmm.
They never made one for her.
And do you feel that was because of her line of work or because of her being transgender?
Both.
Yeah, that's a shame. Because any way you slice at it, whatever career she's in or whatever lifestyle she's living is shouldn't take away from the fact she's a missing person and somebody's child, and they should want to look for her just for that.
We've always said that, maybe a lot of people think that because she was out there on the streets, she was alone. Or maybe she didn't have the support. As there are many cases of people that are out in the street because of their gender, because of the lifestyle they choose, their family turned their back on them, right? We know that. But Kimberly was so loved, and she knew that she had her family's support in everything that she did. So the people that maybe, like I've always said in my press conferences, maybe whoever took her thought that she was alone, thought that nobody would look for her. Maybe they thought that, whatever happened to her, nobody would care. But they're so wrong because look at us now. We continue to fight. And we are going to continue to do so until we get whatever answer they give us. But until we get answers, we're not giving up. And it's like I tell the detectives, right now we haven't posted flyers because of the COVID and, some of the new businesses downtown, are not allowing us to put up flyers. So there's a lot of things that have stopped us from doing what we usually used to do before. My family, I would drive every single night since she went disappearing to see if maybe we saw her out on the street. We'd go out at night, come back in the middle of the night, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I would drive at night. I would leave my boys with my mom and I would drive. I would stand there, go to the corner, drive around to see maybe if I saw her, maybe thinking whoever took her, and have her working, right? You go through so many things, and I would think, maybe if they have her working, they'll bring her out at night. And I would stay there until, close to early in the morning when everybody was gone. And nothing. Because of her disappearance, city of Brownsville unfortunately didn't have cameras downtown or only in certain areas. So that also affected the case because not every street had cameras. Now, after her disappearance, now they have cameras everywhere. But it's like I said, it's too late now.
Yeah. Well, it's something positive at least now that it might help someone else from, going missing, or if they do go missing, maybe they can help recover them and help figure out who did it. But it sounds like you're definitely not giving up the fight and you're going to continue searching. And, I wish you luck. I hope you find out what happened to Kimberly, and we'll do our part to share her story and let people know that she's still missing and you're still searching for her.
That's one of the things that we need help in, the exposure of her case. Because like I said, police department's not doing anything to expose that she's still missing. They only come forward when we do the press conferences. And due to COVID, we can't have press conferences like we used to before. Now, her vigil for her anniversary, her vigil for her birthday, we have to do it through the internet, because of COVID. Unfortunately, that has stopped us in doing a lot of things that we used to do before, us going to the police department like we used to before, my mother and I, demanding us. Now it's very difficult to get through the police department because, they're not taking people in. We can't have the press conference as we used to before. The reporters down here in the valley, they know about her case. So when it's her anniversary coming up, they'll reach out to us or, the newspaper. But other than that, if we don't push it, if we don't announce it, if we don't try to do something to let the community know that we're still looking and that she's still missing and that we still plead, we plead the community for anybody to come up and talk, police department's not doing anything.
Oh, well, don't let that discourage you, and you do your part, and you keep on looking, and everyone that's willing to help you. I hope that you'll keep up the search. And again, we'll do our part to spread the word and get more people aware of her case. And I hope somehow, some way you find out what happened to her.
Yes. And the only thing, my family and I are very grateful that, that you wanted to talk about her case. She did not mess with anybody. She was, I guess, one of the sweetest persons you could come across. Very friendly. She would take off her shirt and give it to someone in need. She was like that. She was very loving here in the family. She was very family oriented. She was my best friend. Me being the last person, like I said, to see her, it does get to me, like you said. It gives me a guilt because I'm like, what if I would have gone back one more time? Maybe I could have seen who took her. Maybe I could have seen if something happened to her, I would have been there, to help. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case. So I told the detectives, and I've always told them, I don't care who I have to go through. I don't care what I have to do, but I'm not going to allow her case to go cold and just dead like that because she wasn't an object. She was a human being, and us not getting the support that we feel we should have gotten from the very beginning, that makes it even more for us to keep on fighting because we know that we don't have the support from here, from the local police department, from the mayor. Nothing like that. So we have to fight on our own, and it's harder for us. So any chance that we get, if anybody's interested in her case and they want to talk about it, we say yes, because we need all the help that we can in that aspect, in a way that they can see that we're still hurting. We're still suffering every single day, not knowing whether she's alive, if she's okay, if they did something to her, if she's here. We have nothing, and it's very painful, holidays, birthdays. And my son has already graduated twice from high school and from the university. He's missed those things, all the plans that she had. It's very hard for us. Yeah,
that missed time you can't get back, and that's anytime someone's missing a loved one that's missing out on all that stuff. It's just a painful reminder, I would think, of them being gone.
Yeah. So I'm very thankful, I'm very grateful and thankful that you have interest in her case. And all I ask, is just please, if you just put it out there so they can know that she's still missing. I don't know, if there's anybody out there that can help us, give us ideas on what else we can do, support groups that we might get help from to see if they can help us push this, with the police department, with the detectives, maybe put more pressure on them and see if they can maybe, come up with more answers than just we're investigating. Yeah. Everything's the same,
yeah. Well, Ed, I hope anyone out there listening will do the right thing, and maybe they can help by sharing her story on Facebook or whatever. Maybe the right person will hear about Kim's case or read about it and be able to come forward with some kind of information.
Okay, yes. Hopefully somebody out there, and like I said, you have no idea how much you're helping us with this. We're blessed and we're forever grateful with everything that you're doing.
Well, we're here for you, and again, we're going to do our part to help spread the word and spread the information about the rewards and the tip lines and stuff. So anyone out there listening, just do the right thing and make the call or come forward with your information. You never know.
And if anybody wants to reach out to me, if they have ideas or groups or anything that we can do that they feel that might help her case, I'm welcome to receive any ideas, any suggestions.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Missing Persons. If you can provide any information to help solve the case we discussed in this episode, please contact the appropriate authorities.
If you enjoy this podcast, please take a moment to tell your friends about Missing Persons and invite them to listen to the show. Word of mouth will help us grow and bring these cases to a larger audience. You can also help us by taking a moment to rate and review Missing Persons on the platform you're listening to us now on.
We'd like to tell you a little bit about our Patreon program. If you visit patreon.com/missingpodcast, you can sign up to help this podcast through ongoing monthly support. As a thank you, we'll give you an on-air shout-out, a thank you card and sticker, plus you'll get early access to ad-free episodes of the show and any bonus content.
Your Patreon support also goes towards helping the missing, because every dollar that we earn through Patreon will be split with charlieproject.org, the wonderful website that's been sharing information about so many missing persons cases for years. We hope you'll consider supporting the show. In this episode, we'd like to thank our new Patreon supporters, Brittany Hughes, Amber Wasson, and Carlos Olvera. Just a reminder that new episodes of Missing Persons air every other Saturday. If you want to find us on social media, you can search Facebook for Missing Persons Podcast. And we're also on Twitter with the handle @missing_pod. And of course, you can find us on our website, missingpersonspodcast.net. As we wrap up this episode, we'd like to play a preview of a true crime podcast we think you'll like. It's called Worse Than Fiction. Be sure to give it a listen. On behalf of Jess Betancourt, this is Mike Morford saying thanks, and we'll see you next time on Missing Persons.
Evil can lurk in any shadow, and it sometimes walks in light, stalking and peering around corners. More often than not, evil is a person you know, a person that you'd never suspect of being involved intimately with a heinous crime. Sometimes it's the stranger you talk to at a tavern, or the mother of a beautiful baby. Sometimes nature itself can seem to be looking for blood. Worse Than Fiction is a true horror podcast that not only covers horrific crimes, but other truly terrifying situations in unfettered detail. You can find Worse Than Fiction on all major podcast platforms, including Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and pretty much anywhere else. I'll warn you though, I don't spare any details. It's not for everyone.
Missing Persons is produced under the name AbJack Entertainment by Mike Morford and Jessica Betancourt. It's hosted by Mike Morford and Jessica Betancourt, with writing and research by Jessica Betancourt and editing by Mike Morford. Be sure to listen every other Saturday for an all-new episode of Missing Persons.